Good morning, beautiful people. Welcome back to the second hour of LoveBabz, LoveTalk. I'm Babz Rawls-Ivy. I'm delighted. I've got a good friend in studio this morning. Hey, Paul Nuñez.
Good morning, Babz. How are you?
How are you? So let me tell you a little bit about Paul Nuñez. He is with DePino, Nuñez and Biggs LLC, which is formerly DePino and Associates. It's a well-rounded New Haven-based government relations firm. They are lobbyists, people. And the best sort. And they have a very diverse staff. And y'all know Paul from being around town. I remember when he used to work for City Hall many moons ago.
I did. I started working for John DeStefano in 2005. But prior to that, I was with the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities. So I was traveling around New Haven, but really got my start here in 05 working for John.
Yes. And how does it feel to sort of be a Latino in government relations? How does that, what is that like?
It's a real privilege for me to be working in a field and industry that, all pretty much since my college career, I was geared towards. I majored in public policy and really sought ways to give back to the community. At one point, I wanted to run for office, found out that I was better placed working for politicians and was able to, get involved in the nitty gritty and just make sure that there was policy that was well-rounded and spoke to the things I cared about. So, people like John DeStefano gave me a huge leg up. Francis Sanchez, who was the deputy mayor of Hartford, was the first official I really kind of sought out and wrote to her while I was in college and asked her if she would take me on as an intern. And that's really what gave me that bug for public service, seeing what people like Francis did and what they were able to do to affect community change. So, got into working for politicians for probably a good decade. Worked for the Speaker of the House for a number of years and then sort of made a transition to government relations as just trying to apply my skills and my knowledge base to an industry and helping people navigate the legislative process.
So when you're out there talking to people, Paul, people who don't really understand how government works and how the legislative process is, and they seem to have a disconnect or sometimes, I don't want to say negative, but displeasure in what they believe is happening in government. How do you talk to people about how they should view the legislative process for their own interests?
Yeah, I think, and our rights and our ability to engage our elected officials is protected. It's a First Amendment right. So, I really start with that basic principle that, yes, you may be dissatisfied, but it's your right to voice that dissatisfaction. It's your right to engage and advocate for things you want, whether it's a piece of legislation that you see as good or it's something that you think brings people, takes things back in a negative direction. So it's that foundational understanding that, yes, I belong in these hallways and I belong to participate in the process, which is hard for folks. I mean, I grew up in Hartford. Probably the first time I stepped into the legislative office building was when I was in college. And this is a building that day in, day out, you see many tour groups of school kids. And as a Hartford public school student, I was never set foot in there. So, there's this aspect too of, the access, but really I try to remind people, this is your process. These are your elected officials. It's your right to come here and advocate. And really that's what allows you to, some of that dissatisfaction go away, right? The helplessness, that feeling that I can't really affect any change, but really going out there and talking to your electeds. I mean, most of them are great people who love to see constituents and really engage.
So do you feel, and I know you're proud and honored to sort of serve in, as a person of Latino, as a Latino person, but do you feel the weight of that? Because sometimes I know as a Black woman, I walk into spaces and I know sometimes it's not by choice that I have to look like I represent the whole damn race of Black people. Do you do you feel that in spaces? Do you feel that periodically?
Yeah, I do. What I've actually now understand more is the sort of the flip side of that, my ability to engage and shed a little bit of light on maybe, cultural misunderstandings or just experience, right? What it's like to have been Puerto Rican growing up in Hartford, and engaging the educational system. I mean, right? So, and at times, yes, it did feel like I have to be the one who represented everybody. But now I really take it as an opportunity, because unfortunately there are times where I am still the only Latino in the room. More and more, increasingly, we have more Latino legislators, more Latino staff, and hopefully as time goes on, Latino lobbyists. Naturally, there are many other Latinos that are registered lobbyists and advocates. So not to say that I'm the only one, but it's an industry where we're seeing more of our own come up, and I really enjoy seeing that.
And so the Latino community, like the Black community, is not monolithic. We can come together on a lot of things, but there are a lot of things Absolutely. That are just very, very different. How do you bridge those differences?
Yeah, it's one of those things I've seen that around immigration issues. The Puerto Rican community has been fortunate to have been granted our citizens to the U.S. since 1917. Since 1917, through a lot of sacrifice and a lot of bad things happening as well. But the immigration issue was one that sometimes people say, "Oh, Puerto Ricans were not as into." But I feel like, in order to grow our collective voice, we have to care about issues that may not affect us immediately, but affect our brothers and sisters. So, it's just finding the common ground. It's finding, maybe it does not affect my family, but how does this issue, affect my neighbors? And it's really just being neighborly and looking to others just as they are, as a brother and sister, as a friend, as a neighbor. And some of these issues aren't that complex, and just kind of being human about it, Babz, is one of the best ways. And I try to portray that and bring that, new views and perspectives into my lobbying when I can.
So one of the things that y'all are doing at your firm is supporting and celebrating the Progressive Latino Fund. Is that it? Did I say it right?
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
So Progressive Latino Fund. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about that fund and what does it do?
Yeah, so they were started in 2003, and one of the the major functions is to promote the educational and socioeconomic well-being of the Latino community in New Haven, in the greater New Haven area. So they do that by highlighting different sort of cultural aspects of the Latino community, highlighting up and coming young talent, and trying to just promote Latino culture and Latino individuals that are doing good for their community. Another important aspect, which is one of the reasons we really give, is they support many of the Latino not-for-profits in the area that are either direct service providers or provide other services to folks in the community. So it's a fund that a number of years back, I was able to sit in one of their sort of community listening sessions. So I really thought that they really did want to reflect the needs and wants of the community. So we gladly, took up their appeal and gave this year to them in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure Aurora sent me a message, and I wanted to make sure that I brought that up because it is Hispanic Heritage Month from September 15th through October 15th, I believe.
That's right. Yep. And we want to encourage others to go out, check out the fund's website, and hopefully give as well. I think they make great impact in the community.
So Paul, walk me through a day of what it means to do your job. What does a lobbyist do?
All right. So let's take a typical session day pre-pandemic, because post-pandemic, for like a lot of us, has meant a lot of Zoom meetings, which we transitioned and we're able to do that as well. But one of the beauties of this job is showing up to the legislative office building on any given day and sort of going through my mental file of issues and clients I have to lobby for. And sort of, I show up there, I have a sense, okay, I gotta, work on this piece of legislation for a client that's in the education committee. So I make my list of legislators I need to, check in with that day or schedule formal meetings. And I do that over and over for each client I have. So it's, really just going about the process of finding out who's with you, who's not, trying to bridge connections between your issue and legislators, and and sometimes just trying to keep the ball moving forward. What I love about the legislative process, it's a linear process that's dictated by dates and deadlines. And as a lobbyist, I get to work within that constraint, get creative a little bit, and get to do some fun stuff, and hopefully move some good policy forward on behalf of my clients. And it's really just a great job to, learn about people's experiences, about their life, the background they bring to the job of legislating. And, it really is a cross section of Connecticut legislature. And you get folks there who are small business people, professionals, teachers. And so interacting with them is really great. So,
So when you take on clients, do you advise them when they say, we want to do this? Do you have advisement for them about a particular policy they want to bring to life? Do you help them work on, what is the relationship like with your clients?
Yeah, so most of the clients bring us on either because so three things. They want sort of general government relations, right? They're an entity that wants to be known and understood amongst policymakers. Then there's folks who either want to pass or defeat legislation. And so each takes on a different sort of flair, but at its most base, we advise them on the policy. We give them our advice on the parameters that the policy may be seeking to set, any past experience that we have with the issue. But our real forte is really creating the pathway forward for them, right? Let's say they're trying to pass a piece of legislation. It's sort of digging down to who the people are that may be most attracted to this piece of policy, but also just working the nuts and bolts, right? Carrying out a vote count in front of the education committee, let's say, or engaging the chairs of the judiciary committee and making sure that they understand what that legislation they may be trying to advance does. So it's just helping them instrumentalize every part of the process, from getting a bill proposed and engaging potential supporters, assuring that they have a successful testimony during a public hearing, and just really being their eyes and ears when it comes to all activity surrounding their issues.
I recognize that all politics are local, but you do have to take the temperature of the country. And how much time do you spend? And do you take cues from what is happening around the country? And do you take cues from what is coming out of Washington?
Yeah, DC is almost like a completely different animal, but there are policy issues that that you sort of see trickle down to the state level from DC. Perhaps they get bogged down in the DC gridlock and partisanship. Perhaps it becomes much easier, and we see this a lot in certain efforts that we work on. Some entities desire to go a state by state strategy versus just a sort of nationalize for certain different reasons. So we do look at to DC to see what are the things that are getting stuck that may trickle down. But really, even in the case of other states, states like California tend to be sort of policy sort of harbingers. When bills move through their legislature, you see them sort of start being taken up in other states. So we also look at the bigger states too to see what they're doing, because from time to time, those issues will start trickling down to other state legislatures.
So what's it like working with your mother-in-law? Your mother-in-law is State Rep Tony Walker.
Yes, yeah. Well, worst kept secret in government. Worst kept secret. And actually, truth be told, I am still surprised. There are people year to year that realize that she's been my mother-in-law for 17 years now. So once in a while, there's folks that are surprised by the familial connection. No, but it's great. She is, obviously such a dedicated and committed legislator to her district and to New Haven and the state of Connecticut. So it's great. I really treat her like any other legislator, particularly, and maybe even with more care in the sense that, we don't want people to think, oh, she's doing it for Paul, right? So one of the deals I always have is I will always get your colleagues' support and demonstrate that this is not just an issue I'm going to you, but others in your committee or your caucus support this issue. So we've been really able to work and create some consensus on a lot of issues, but it's great. She's somebody she's a teacher, right? And she just teaches me so much about the process and the budget in particular, because that's one of her areas of expertise. So it's been really great. It's been a blessing.
So I know you have participated in discussions with my sorority, Delta Sigma Theta, in New Haven. You have been part of some of the conversations. We were doing a conversations that matter across the city, and you participated in talking about just this kind of thing and how people can participate and be heard and that kind of thing. What do you think we need, Paul, to educate more people about the legislative process and their commitment as citizens to voting?
Yeah, I think it starts out with bringing those classrooms into the legislative office building. It's seeing that the building is accessible, that it's a place that you can visit and take part in the process. Unlike Washington, D.C., where you have to be invited to speak at a hearing, you can just show up the day of and sign up to testify. So, it's a system really made for participation of the public. And now with, Zoom and, our pandemic reality was for the first time having the legislative process happening, but not being able to engage face to face, which in our industry, that was pretty monumental. But because of Zoom, we saw participation up in public hearings by members of the public and interested, constituents. So, it starts with the small things, bringing kids into the building. It's elected officials, holding coffee meetings in their districts, right? And being as accessible as possible. Because I think, state legislator has probably, a lot of day-to-day impact that residents may not realize. And also their accessibility is just really there. So to be able to grab a Pat Dillon or Gary Winfield, it's pretty easy. Most, you go down to one of our coffee shops, you run into them, right? And most of them are really happy to engage on issues and hear from constituents. So it's not rocket science, but it's just little things that, we can do as individuals too, and educate ourselves a little bit, right? And reach out, even if it's a simple email. I think that's important. So we're not here to just sort of sit on our hands and let governing happen to us. We can really engage back and shape how governing happens.
So we are in a midterm season, and we've got elections coming up in November. We've got a bunch of races. What do you say to people when you hear stuff like, midterm elections are not that sexy, they're not that interesting. People get excited about the bigger elections.
Sure. Yeah. Well, no. What I would say is, your state tax rates are going to be determined by who wins an election like this. Things that you may care about. Whether it's a legal cannabis for adults, right? Those are things that are decided by who wins in mid-state elections. So a lot of your day-to-day issues, things that you faced, from schooling to the roads, right? These are things that elected officials that are up in this cycle, state legislators, the governor, those are issues that will be decided by people during this election cycle. So I probably feel the opposite. I care more about midterm elections than the big national elections because so much of my work is driven by the state legislature and state government. This is for me, so election night is a big night for me. Our whole team sits down and keeps track of who's winning, and we try to get out reports to our clients as soon as possible on what the dynamics of each caucus look like, who may be leading in the exit polls for governor and stuff like that. So this is kind of like our prime time, but hugely important in terms of day-to-day impact. And also, again, accessibility, right? Ability to voice my concern to the folks crafting the state budget. Well, that's much easier done than perhaps reaching out to our Congress members, although I find them pretty accessible as well with email and stuff like that. So,
So what are the most pressing issues that Connecticut is looking at from your perspective?
Yeah, I think right now we're at a interesting crossroads. For so much of my career, we were in this sort of deficit mode where the state finances were in shambles, successive deficits in state budget. We hear a lot about unfunded liabilities in our pension programs and others. And sort of an odd thing that happened during the pandemic was that we started seeing a fiscal turnaround in terms of our state budget. The budget reserves ballooned so much that there were some new triggers that were added into state law that once the surplus grew enough, then a certain amount of that money would then go to pay down debt. And we've been able to use that mechanism to pay down large amounts of debt. Now there's discussion about what do we do with this huge surplus that we have. There's those saying, well, we should hang on to it because we're seeing inflation and a potential recession on its way. So let's hang on to that surplus because it's quite not ready yet. Some folks are saying we're in a post-pandemic recovery, and that merits taking up that's expenditures and spending more on different programming. So I think that's going to be one of the big sort of philosophical issues. What do we do with the surplus? Do we save it? Do we spend a little? And I'm sure both of those will happen. It's just to what degree and what programming will we see more investments in.
So what is the best part of your job? What do you like about this job?
I like engaging people. I like moving issues through. There's nothing more gratifying than having a client testify at a committee meeting and, getting all those questions you want raised to get, to get asked, having seen that board of the vote tally on a piece of legislation that you've worked on through, the committee process all the way to the, getting it through the House and then that final vote, let's say in the House or Senate, and seeing the votes come through for it. That's a great moment because, it's all just comes down to yeses and nos, all the hard work, all the testimony, all the one-on-one lobbying. And so that's sort of the big moment when you see that tally up there, hopefully in the affirmative, and getting that bill across the goal line.
Do you feel like a role model? Because I would imagine when kids see you come into a classroom or they see you wherever you are, and they find out what you do. I mean, that's not in anybody's. That's not in the things that people imagine they could be. And so when they see you, it's a big deal.
I hope I can be a role model. I hope only recently have we started bringing on interns who seek out lobbying firms because they want to be a lobbyist. So that's a new dynamic for me. I never, at a young age said I want to become a black hat lobbyist, and run a government relations firm, right? But we are seeing students like that. We just had an intern from New Haven, who's a UConn student who really wanted to understand what government relations is and lobbying, and he completed an internship with us. So I do hope kids look up not only me but others working in government. It's a deeply gratifying field. It's you can be as corporate as you want, or you can do just stuff that affects the community. So it really does give you a lot of possibilities. So I would say anybody interested in lobbying, you could always reach out to us through our website. And we're currently looking for interns for this coming legislative session. So if you're interested, we love to bring you on, teach you what lobbying is about. And I also say it's a great career. It's allowed me to do so much professionally, meet so many people, provide for my family, which ultimately. No matter how much you love a job, it's got to do that. So I'm very happy with picking this, and I hope others see this as a possible pathway for them.
I like that you said that, Paul, because I think people have such a misunderstanding of lobbyists. I think a picture has been painted of lobbyists being unscrupulous and not above the line and all this other kind of stuff. How do you address that?
Well, it's just like in any career, right? Sometimes you hear about the bad apples when they do bad things, and that's when you may first hear about a lobbyist, is when Jack Abramoff at the federal level was taking money and giving money and doing all sorts of horrible illegal things. But it's like any profession. There are those who carry themselves in high regard and work professionally, and sometimes there's others that don't. But I think also it's a function of how our career, how our job is. A lot of the things we work on are sort of under confidentiality agreements with the client, and so the exposure out there for the issues you may be working on day to day tend to be kept in the back burner. But I love letting people know that I'm a lobbyist. I love dispelling the notions that people have, because I happen to do my job very ethically, above board, because it's just the alternatives. It's just not good. And most of the things that people do in professional capacities are either out of stupidity or to give themselves some sort of edge. I try to avoid all those things.
And so you're owner, member of the firm, of your firm, DNB.
Yes, ma'am.
And what caused that decision? Like, how did you know that that was the path? Because you could be working for just about
Yeah, well,
anybody.
it's yeah. So I was leaving. So I was working for Chris Donovan, Speaker of the House, another gentleman who gave me and Millie, his then chief of staff, gave me a shot at working for him, and that's what really started to get my ideas going about really staying at the state level and working at the legislative process. And as he was sort of finishing his term as speaker, I started thinking about what I wanted to do, and I had already done sort of like inside lobbying, working for an entity and being their lobbyist, exclusively. Did that for the city. I had worked at an association where we represent different members of like interest. And so the next step for me in my mind was, I want to go work at a contract lobbying firm where I can work with a roster of clients, keeps my attention span going because day to day I can work on different issues, and really just allow my skill set, allow my knowledge base and experience to just really work for all sorts of different entities and in different ways. And so I approached Chris DePino, who you might know as well. And
I do know Chris.
DePino Associates. He started DePino Associates in 2003 and had worked with him. He was, and we still are, the City of New Haven's lobbyist. So he was my lobbyist at one point when I was working for the City of New Haven, and developed a good relationship with him and approached him about, hey, what do you think if I came over to the shop? At that point, I had kind of recruited, a couple of clients and was thinking either, okay, I might hang up my own shingle or go somewhere. And Chris kind of just rolled out the welcome mat like nobody else I talked to. He said, you could come here and just work for me, or you could come here and take this firm over with Melissa and take it into, the next 25 years. And he inspired me with that, and stuck true to his word. And about 4 years ago, we started the formal transition. So I've changed the name to DePino, Nuñez, and Biggs. Melissa Biggs is our other partner who has been with the firm since she was a intern at Southern Connecticut State University. So she's been the backbone of the company for many years now, and now we are the first Latino woman-owned lobbying firm in the state. So we're pretty proud of that. We're both sort of young upstarts who were given this great chance by Chris, and are really, trying to make a world-class lobbying firm, from our talent, and and provide really good service to our clients.
It has been my pleasure to talk to you today. I so appreciate your time. I've enjoyed this immensely, and I
many
love
years in the
having
making.
you. Yes, many. So I don't want you to be a stranger. Like I don't want another several thousand years to go by.
No, I know.
Before you come back.
I appreciate you bringing me on. It's I've always been kind of like a keep my head down, and work kind of guy. Doing something like this, talking about what I do is new to me, but we've worked really hard and we have a really great thing going on and a great company. So I was, I'm very happy and proud to be here and talk about my experience.
Well, thank you. Well, say hello to your beautiful wife, Talia, the author. And I'm looking for her next, and the beautiful children that are so grown up now. Holy
Absolutely.
Cow.
Yes, I know. 14 and 9. And just quick plug for my wife. She'll be her latest book based on the Borinqueniers of the 65th Infantry, all Puerto Rican Army infantry, will come out in November, and that's another great snapshot of American history that for folks of color is it's a lot of bravery and betrayal all in one, and it's a great story.
Well, you whispered to her tonight that this was not painful.
It was not. It was enjoyable. I can probably go another hour.
And you tell her, come and sit in the chair, and we'll have a lovely conversation about her book.
Will do. Thank you, Babz.
Thank you, Paul Nuñez. It is such a pleasure to see you.
Yes, ma'am.
Say hi to everybody at the firm. I'll see you soon.
Will do.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
All right. Have a good day. All right, Harry Droz, it's time for us to go. I had a wonderful conversation with Paul Nuñez of DNB LLC, the minority, a woman and Latino-owned firm. Can you believe that? Here in Connecticut. So I look forward to seeing y'all tomorrow. My guest will be, this has been a good talking week, let me tell you. But I'll be back tomorrow. So y'all have a lovely day. And I will see y'all soon. Thanks, Harry. Play us out.